Disclaimer. All views expressed on What Makes Us Fire are solely those of the person or persons giving them. What Makes Us Fire does not represent or claim to represent any particular city or fire department, and therefore make the claim that all views and standpoints are affiliated with What Makes Us Fire and with What Makes Us Fire only. Any mention of certain fire departments or cities within the interviews are solely for informational and opinion based dialogue. In short, if you have a problem with something that's published, just say something about it and don't be a Richard. What makes us fire family? How you guys doing? Hey, today we have a special guest. His name is Kurt. He's a fellow firefighter. We work in the same shift. We work on the same crew. And I think you're going to like his story because when you see him and when you hear him, the first thought is not firefighter. He knows this about himself and he's okay with it, but he has definitely proven himself to be a valuable asset within the fire department as a firefighter. You guys take a minute to sit back, relax, and listen to where he came from, how he's overcome that obstacle of being perceived as not your typical fireman. Without further ado, what makes us fire family? Please welcome Kurt Woolridge. Okay, let's do this again. This is the third time we were attempting this. Holy crap. Kurt, thank you for the third time again and being patient with me. Thank you for coming on the show. What makes us fire, man?
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
I know we're re-recording because our first session, the audio was extremely fucked up.
Unfortunately, yeah.
I messed it up really bad. I have been learning a lot, so hopefully I don't screw this one up. So, Kurt, me and you work together,
Yes.
and you're from up north. You're not from the Texas area at all.
No, I've only been down here for close to 3 years now.
So, are you one of the ones that say pop?
Yeah, that was one of those things I never even thought about until I came down here and people started asking me shit like that, and I was like, wait, the fuck do I say? And I think I do say it sometimes now too.
All right, podcast over. I can't. No. Anyway, yeah, man. So I've kind of told you what the podcast is about. It's kind of just to get more in depth behind the firefighters, their personalities, where they're from, their backgrounds and everything. Because I think there is a misconception that firefighters are almost all the same.
Yes.
And that we all like act the same, we all think the same, we all do the same things. And it can't be further from the truth. I mean, when I first met you, okay, you came to my station and you came with some rumors behind you. You have, from what I've noticed, you have surpassed those rumors that didn't put you in a good light.
I'm glad to hear that.
Don't let it go to your head.
No, it's not.
I noticed that when you came, my first impression of you was, and this is me being completely honest, this guy's a firefighter? I mean, if I saw you outside the job, not knowing you were hired and working with me, if I saw you outside the job and somebody said, hey, he's a firefighter, I would be stop bullshitting me. Do you get that a lot?
I actually have gotten that before. Or I've just gotten it a handful of times where it's like I meet people or like a friend introduces me to someone and they'll ask me what I do and I say, oh, I'm a firefighter. They're just like, really? They'll give me that kind of look. I'm like, huh.
Why do you think that is?
Because I'm skinny.
Yes.
I'm, I think a lot of people, when they always think of firefighters, they think of, and especially people who aren't in the fire service. When you think of a firefighter, you think of a guy who's like 6'3" and just jacked.
And
That's just not true.
no, it's not. It's not true. We get a lot of different body types and body styles and looks that come into the fire department that when you first see them, you're like, I don't know about this guy. But then I've learned that all of us have a use when it comes to being on the fire ground. Like someone like you, if there was a collapse, if there was a small space we needed somebody to get into, we'd be like, ah, Kurt, Kurt can fit through there. Kurt, get in there. Go do that job through that hole.
That's actually what I get used for a lot. Just about every time I'm on a rollover or anything like that, I'm usually the guy who's told, go crawl in the car and check on the patient.
Yeah, well, you fit
Yeah.
through small openings. I don't know how people are going to take that, but well, not only that, your look, man, you look like a skater boy.
That's because I used to be
a little bit of a hippie boy, a little bit of, you have a little bit of, and I'm going to say this at the risk of you getting pissed off at me. You have this little bit look of like, you have a millennial look.
Okay.
Yeah. You're young though.
Yeah. I am technically a millennial, so yeah.
Well, then I'm spot on. But anyway, I'm going to stop dogging you on your looks. You came to the station and you surpassed all the rumors that we heard about you. You're hardworking. You don't bitch. You're down for training whenever it happens. You do the job right. You do it well. Don't let it go to your head, but I really just want you to know I think you have surpassed the rumors that we heard, because the rumors that we heard were not the things that you've shown.
Okay.
It happened to me too, believe it or not, when I moved from one station to another.
Mm-hmm.
Some people were saying things about me. And of course, this is when I was a rookie. And when it got to the lieutenant I was working with at the time, they pulled me off to the side. They were like, you know, are you really like this? Like, what's going on? And they told me that I was not what they heard. So they were wondering if I heard something, if somebody talked to me or anything like that. And I said, no, that's not it at all. It's just people perceive what they want to perceive. And what pissed me off about it is that the people that were saying that didn't come up and talk to me and tell me this is the way they were perceiving me.
Yeah.
So I can change it. Did you have that problem?
So I think one of the issues I tend to usually have is that I'm generally a very quiet person. Like if I'm like around a group of people I know really well, I'll sit and shoot the shit, just talk to them. I like to hang out, but especially like meeting new people, very much an introvert. I just kind of slide back, kind of stick to the corner. I don't want attention on myself. And I think a lot of people usually perceive that as me like not wanting to get to know people, or me not like being approachable or nice. It's not me that I don't like you. It's just that I'm a quiet guy.
Yeah, I did notice that. And I remember when I first invited you, I think I invited you over to the house for something, for a cookout or something. We're having a barbecue or
Super Bowl, isn't it?
Yeah, Super Bowl. That's right. I invited you over to the house and you came and you brought your wife, and it was an interesting thing for me because it was a time for me to learn who you were outside the job for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I did notice that you were still a little bit quiet, even though we worked together for a few months by that point.
Yeah.
And I got to learn that all it took was somebody talking to you for you to open up.
That's usually what it is. Yeah.
So you're usually not the one to initiate conversation usually.
Not normally. I usually like tell myself like, ah, they got better things to do than want to talk with me. They probably don't want to talk to me. So I'm usually just like, I'll just sit here, and if they want to talk, they'll come talk to me. And
So,
I know I shouldn't do that, but I do that all the time.
so you think the idea that firefighters are outgoing and everything else like that, that's kind of bullshit when it comes to you?
Oh, very. I mean, like I can, like I said, I can be very outgoing. I'm usually a very like happy-go-lucky kind of guy, but just very introverted at that same time. Where it's like when I'm around people I know, I'm usually very talkative and very like just kind of outgoing. But
It's hard for me to hear
things,
you say that because I know that now.
yeah,
Because we've been able to hang out a few times. We've learned a lot about each other. So I know that now. So when I hear you say that and talk about it, I was like, yeah, I know. So it's difficult for me to find those questions to kind of get the point through that not all firefighters are those outgoing, loud, look at me firefighters.
no,
There's firefighters like you, and we have plenty of them. There's plenty of them, right? Not all of us are very outgoing and loud. I am very much the guy that I can be loud, I can be the center of attention. I'm okay with it. But when somebody else comes in and they have something to say or they want to be the center of attention, I'm totally cool with keeping my mouth shut
hmm
and just letting them ride.
yeah,
So we've gotten to know each other the past almost year now that you've been working at Station 5.
yeah,
And I think that when compared to other firefighters, that you are unique in that your lifestyle's not what you would consider a firefighter's lifestyle to be. I mean, your house in general, we talked to your wife about this,
yeah.
right? Your house is like walking in, and I told her it's like walking into a Tim Burton shrine, and I love it. It's freaking awesome.
Yeah,
You got Nightmare Before Christmas everywhere. You got you and Sarah's pictures with those changing to a skull pictures
yep.
and
Then you have our wedding photos from when our wedding pictures were taken of us in a cemetery.
yes, yes, your wedding was taken. Pictures were taken in the cemetery, and believe it or not, mine and Melinda's one of our first dates was in a cemetery.
Nice.
That's weird, huh? Is that weird?
Not to us.
Yeah, well, not to you guys,
Yeah.
but I think to most people, like, why would you go on a date to a cemetery? And for us, it's looking at the headstones, looking at people when they lived, and then thinking about that time, the history. And I mean, they have statues there that are just beautiful. The
Yeah.
the feeling there is it just feels good. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I don't feel sadness there.
No. No. I mean, for Sarah and I, we would that would just kind of be like a something we would just go do
Why'd you guys go do stuff like that?
just because
Do you
some
enjoy it?
stuff we enjoy.
There you go. Well, where are you from? Let's get a little bit of a background as to why maybe that's something you guys enjoy. Where are you from?
So I'm from Illinois, originally from Hebron, Illinois, just little town about hour and a half to 2 hours outside of Chicago, right on the Illinois-Wisconsin border. That was actually it was the first fire department I got onto. There was the volunteer department for that town. It was just like 1,200 people in that in the city. So we averaged only like maybe a call a day. We were paid on call, so we'd respond from your house, go to the station, then pick up the rigs and go out to the call.
That's a small city, only 1,200 people.
Yeah.
That's really small. That's like one of those cities where everybody knows your business cities.
Yeah, actually, when I first got hired there, the chief at the time said, "Just so you know, you can't take a shit in this town without everyone knowing about it."
That sounds very true. I mean, to be in I couldn't even imagine living in a town that small. I mean, I grew up in El Paso, which is a large community,
Yeah.
and then I moved to the Houston area, which is a large community. I've never lived in a small town before, so hearing somebody coming from there, it's interesting because there is an aspect to when you live in a community where a lot of people know you, but not everyone knows you.
Yeah, in that town, basically everyone knows you.
Did you feel like it was kind of invasive?
Not really. So originally, when I was growing up, I lived outside the city or outside the town. So I would go into that town for like when I'd go to like soccer practices or hang out with friends, stuff like that. It wasn't until when I got hired on that apartment because I was like right on the edge of that fire department's district. So I was like, man, I never was able to actually make it to the station in time to actually go run a call because everyone else lived like actually in the town and they're there right away. So when I got hired on when I was just before my 19th birthday, and it was right when I turned 20. I moved actually into the town with one of the other guys who lived in the fire department. So I knew a lot of the people in the town, but I didn't grow up like actually in the town. So I was for the most part like a lot of the people in that town viewed like, oh, that's like outsider almost, because everyone else it was they knew them since they were kids.
Did did you feel that hindered you in getting to know the guys at the job?
Not really, no. I knew a couple of them for like before I got on the department. I mean, for the most part, when I got hired there, I had hair down to a little past my shoulders. I was total like skater, lacrosse playing, like "what's up, bro" kind of guy.
Oh God,
Yeah,
I can't
totally
even
was
see you
that
like
guy.
that now.
And I got hired on with another guy who was someone who fit that like description of what everyone might think a firefighter looks like. And so when I first got hired, everyone thought like, "Oh, all right, we got a firefighter and some weird kid." But then about 5 months
You're
into
still
it,
the weird kid,
no,
currently.
about 5 months into it, I was in. Well, no, once I was into the fire academy, I shaved my head because the hair kept getting annoying when I was trying to get my gear on. And around that time, everyone was like, "Yeah, we were definitely wrong about that one," because the guy I got hired with was was a nice guy, but he was kind of an idiot.
He was a shit firefighter.
It was just because like you could give him simple instructions and he would fuck it up every
Well,
time.
I think in all departments there's somebody like that, and they
Yeah.
slip through the cracks, and then they get hired, and then you realize, crap, we made a mistake.
Yeah. So it was one of those back then. I know I brought it on myself by how I looked, but a lot of people didn't think I was actually going to stick around or actually go into it. And then he ended up leaving the department, and I stuck around for 6 years before I
Wow.
moved.
How old were you when you started again?
It was just before my 19th birthday.
So you were 18 getting into the field.
Yeah.
Wow. That's young, man. I didn't excuse me, I don't know if you heard the first podcast, but I started and I didn't even realize that I wanted to be a firefighter until I was almost 22 years old. So, did you grow up always knowing that's what you wanted to do?
No idea. So I was a senior in high school. Had like I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. I was kind of like I was looking at colleges, but I was just kind of like I don't know. I ended up getting to talk with a firefighter, and he was a really cool dude. And as she was just telling me about what it is he does and what it's like being a firefighter, I was just kind of like, it actually sounds kind of cool. Sounds like something I would actually enjoy doing.
How old were you when you figured that out?
I was 18.
Oh,
It
okay.
was my senior year of high school.
So you're like me. You didn't grow up thinking like this is something you wanted to do.
Mm-mm.
Because I know, I mean, there's firefighters out there that have a legacy, i.e.,
Yeah.
grandfather, father, now them. You have some that saw a firefighter when they were 6 years old. And then from that point on, that's what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
But you're like me, it took somebody to spark your interest.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it wasn't somebody. It was literally picking a course out of a book, going to the class. But for you, it was talking to somebody and it sparked your interest.
Yeah, yeah. And so then I went to that community college that had a fire science program, and just the intro to fire science class. I was like, sure, I'll sign up for it, see if I like it. And after that first class, I was like, yeah, this is definitely what I wanted to do. I fell in love with it.
That's exact. For me, it was the first day of EMS class, EMT basic class.
Yeah, I took that. That was my second class I took.
Yeah, I took it first because the counselors told me that it'd probably be better if I had that first. That way I can concentrate on the fire by itself.
Mm-hmm.
And the first day when I opened up the book and I saw those pages, I was like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So for you, it was interest. I'm not too sure. First day of class, hooked.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, we have similar stories in that. So you worked at this volunteer department.
Mm-hmm.
Now it was volunteer department, but we say work. Were you getting paid?
We were paid on call, so while you were on call, you could, as long as you were somewhere in the town while you were on call, you were good, and you were getting paid, but it was like a couple bucks an hour. And then when you were actually, if you caught a call while you were actually running that call, you were getting paid. I think I was at like $10 an hour.
Wow. Was that your only job?
Initially, yeah. So initially, that was my only job. Then I worked just there for a little while. I think I was 22. I was 22 when I got hired onto another fire department that was just like, they were only like part-time. And I just worked those two departments until I was after 24, and because I was 25 I was 24 actually when we moved down here
To Texas.
Yeah, I was 24 when we moved to Texas. It was right after Sarah and I got married, and I was 25 when I got hired on the full-time department.
Yeah. Oh, and that story, how you and Sarah, I mean, she was there pretty much from the beginning before you even got into the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
So how she explains it that you met where you told me to, you met at a dance, your prom.
Yeah. So we met at our senior prom.
Did you guys go to the same school?
Yes.
Okay. And you hung out with her beforehand or no?
No, like we knew of each other, but we never really talked to each other or anything.
Well, it was a small town, huh?
So the way the fire department lines and the school lines were different. So I was in the fire district for Hebron, but where my house sat, I was in the school district for Harvard, Illinois, which didn't have the best school district. So my parents actually sent me to a private like high school, which we weren't Catholic. It was just it was either that or it was the school that didn't have a very good reputation or wasn't a very good school to go to. So I went to a private school and did not enjoy it at all.
You don't look like somebody that would.
No, I had to wear a tie every day, and I hated every moment of it.
Yeah, I look at you and Sarah, and when you guys tell me you guys met at a Catholic school, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. There's no way in hell I would ever think. But you do hear those stories of the kids that go to those kind of schools, and then when they leave, they are extremely rebellious because they just felt trapped the entire time.
Yeah, I hated that school. We went to that high school. It was our senior prom. I was actually dating a girl at the time.
Were you there with your date?
No.
So you went stag?
Yeah, she couldn't go to the prom, but I only really wanted to go because post prom, the school set it up so we actually got to go to a water park for post prom, and I was like, that's all I really cared about. I didn't really care about the dance. I just wanted to go to the water park.
Ah, okay.
That sounded like fun.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, I'll go to prom. Why not? I just went by myself, hung out with friends, and I was like, well, I need someone to dance with. So I saw Sarah, and I was like, she seems cool. I'll ask her.
She seems cool or she seems hot?
Yes.
Sarah's a beautiful girl, man. And I've seen pictures of back when you guys were young. The fact that she said yes to you,
Yeah, I know.
Melinda makes fun of you. You have a picture of you when you're 18 up on your wall, and I agree with her. You look like you're 12.
I know. I have baby face. I will be getting carded at bars till I'm in my 40s.
Most likely, probably past.
Yeah.
But that's actually kind of a good thing too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, so you meet Sarah at the dance,
Mm-hmm.
and then what?
Well, I asked her to dance. And while we were dancing, we were talking. And I was like, yeah, this girl seems a lot cooler than the one I'm with. And I mean, the girl I was with beforehand, we had only been dating for like 3 or 4 months or something like that.
We also have to remember you're only 17, 18 years old at the time, too.
So after prom, I broke up with that girl. And like a week or two later or something like that, I asked out Sarah. And
did Sarah know this was your plan?
To wind up getting married, or
no, to break up with the girl. And
I mean, now she does. Back then she didn't.
Oh, okay. I was wondering if she did then.
No. Back then, so one of my friends was telling her that I was gonna ask her out and that she should totally go out with me. And Sarah went onto my Facebook and she saw a picture of me with my old girlfriend, and she was just like, "Nah, those two look happy. He won't ask me out." And
see, she didn't tell me that. She didn't tell me she Facebook stalked you.
So I was, and I was not very happy with that girl at all. So
yeah, I mean, you're 18 years old. We're still kids. We're still learning.
Yeah. So yeah, she didn't know that I was planning on breaking up with that girl to ask her out. But, I'd say it worked out.
Yeah, it did. You guys are a beautiful couple. I love you guys.
Yeah.
So you ask her out, you start dating, but you get into the fire service fairly quickly. And then she tells me she goes off to college.
Yeah. So she originally went to school in Michigan. So we were close to a 5-hour drive away from each other.
How soon after your relationship started, did that happen?
So we had the summer between our senior year of high school and freshman year of college.
So 3 months.
Yeah, we had about 3 months together, and then she went to college. So once she
5 hours away.
Yeah, once she went to college, we'd see each other every couple months, maybe.
How did you guys make that work? She said Zoom and Skype and stuff and texting.
We did a lot of Skype dates. It would pretty much be every night. We would just hop on Skype and talk to each other.
And that's how you guys made it work?
Mm-hmm.
Did she date anybody or you date anybody in between?
Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
That young of a relationship and being that young as how old you are, it didn't.
No.
That's impressive.
So yeah, we thank God for like video chat and stuff like that, because it definitely made it easier.
Do you think without it, you guys would have made it all the way?
I mean, I like to think we would have, but
thinking logically, thinking honestly, do you think not being in contact or seeing each other even via video?
Yeah, it probably would have made it a lot harder. Because seeing each other in video, you're at least actually like seeing each other.
Right. So she goes to school. She's 5 hours away. Mm-hmm. You start the fire department. You guys talk to each other almost every night via video. And then she tells me she goes even farther away.
Yeah. So I want to say it was between her. Yeah, it was her junior year of college. She went and did the Disney internship program. So she went down to Disney World in Orlando. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And she was down there for about 6 months. So we didn't get to see each other for 6 months at that point.
You didn't visit her at all?
Because that same 6 months were the 6 months that I was in the fire academy. So I was basically every day in class or in trainings or burns or something.
So even during holidays or anything like that, you didn't go see her?
No, I couldn't get the time off. And being one of the newer guys at the volunteer department, I was expected to be around for everything.
Right.
So, especially being that young, I was like, no, I've got to be around. I can't just not show up.
Well, you did something for her when she moved down there that she told me about, that you drove to take her guitar.
Yeah, so when she was first going down there, she she went down with her dad initially. And then it was about the same time that I was moving out of my parents' house and into living with one of my friends from the fire department. And my aunt, who lives in Florida, had this couch. It was a nice couch. They just didn't use it. So I was kind of like, well, free couch. So my mom and I drove all the way down to Florida to go visit them and see them because we hadn't gotten to see my aunt and everyone in a little while. So drove down, got to see him, spent a couple. I was close to 2 weeks, I think I spent down there with them, and then we loaded the couch up and drove it back up. But when we drove down, I took some things for Sarah and like her guitar and I can't remember what else. I know it was her
You took
guitar,
some things for it, right?
and we drove it down, and I mean we got to see each other for like about 45 minutes when I dropped off the guitar, but it wasn't very long. I basically could show up, hand it to her, give her a hug and a kiss, and then she had to go do something for the internship program. So
Wow. And that was how long was that? Like at the beginning of
yeah,
her?
that was like right at the beginning of her going down there.
Dang, 6 months, man. Well, do you think being apart and being able to have to almost force that communication help your relationship?
Definitely, I actually do think that did help us because it was one of those things like if we could go all that long distance bullshit, once we actually were able to see each other, it was a lot easier.
Yeah, and that was something that I asked her too, that it with being that long distance relationship and having to literally force yourselves that you your connection is solely based pretty much on communication.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you guys took away that physical aspect of being around each other, holding hands, hugging, kissing, all that stuff. You took that out. And it sounds like for a long period of time at the beginning of your relationship, it was solely based on communication.
yeah, it really was, and it did really help. Like it sucked. It was not fun at all. But it also did really help us that like once we were actually able to like see each other like regularly, it just that kind of stuff like communication wasn't an issue ever.
It sounds like arguments are just that, just arguments and not fights then.
Yeah. So I think Sarah talked to you about that.
Well,
Like,
she told me that because of your communication and how long you guys had to just basically rely on that, that when you guys do argue, it doesn't really escalate to a fight,
yeah,
but more of a disagreement, and you guys are able to talk to each other a lot better. Even though at the end of the disagreement, you guys still might not agree, but there's no animosity held because you guys were both open and communicated.
yeah, yeah. That's actually something I was always pushing for because man, growing up, I would see couples that would like they just be at each other's throat all the time. Like the husband would always make jokes like, "Oh, my bitch wife," and I would always see that kind of stuff, and I would just be like, "Why are you with them? Like you two hate each other, yet you're in this relationship that looks horrible." So like, I never wanted that kind of stuff. I never wanted to be in a relationship where you're talking shit about your spouse behind their back because you're so aggravated by them.
Yeah, that I
So
mean that, but that's normal for some couples. Sometimes they frustrate you, and sometimes what they're frustrating you about, is stupid. So you got to go tell somebody else.
yeah, but so like so for Sarah and I, it's always been like if some one of us is frustrating the other, we'll just tell each other like, "Hey, this is I don't like this," and then we would just talk it out. Usually, like we've had fights. I mean, we've been together for damn near 10 years. Obviously, we have fought in a couple times, but our like actual like fights, I can count on like one hand over that 10 years.
I need more digits than my body produces to tell you how many times mine and my wife has fight. Me and my wife have fight.
Like we've gotten like angry with each other, yeah, but we've like actual like fighting, yelling at each other, never really do that much because I usually try to make sure I stay calm because I always see it as if you start escalating it, like if you start yelling, it just builds and builds and builds, and now you're just screaming in each other's faces.
Where did you learn that? Where did you learn to think that way?
That was just kind of something I think I just noticed watching other people, like watching. You know, you'd watch other couples and stuff, and you'd see that that's how they would always fight. It would always start as it would start as a disagreement, and it just escalate until this huge argument of them hating each other. I was like, well, if they would have just took the time in 5 minutes to take a deep breath back then, it could have been done and over in 20 minutes instead of 5 days of them hate, like, not wanting to talk to each other.
Yeah. So you looked at a couple and you're like, I'm going to do the opposite of that.
Basically, yeah.
Well, that's good. Some people have couples that they look at and they're like, I want to do that. You just said, I don't want to do that.
Basically, yes.
Has the you being a firefighter ever been an issue?
Honestly, I don't think it's ever really been an issue between
Has it
the
ever
two of
caused
us.
any arguments?
No, I don't think so. Sarah's always been really understanding about my job and about everything it entails and the commitment that comes behind it. I always count myself lucky for how she's been during this whole thing with me being a firefighter. Um,
Did you hear her podcast?
I did listen to it, yeah.
So you heard what she did?
About when she would watch like Ladder 49 when we first started
Watch
dating,
Ladder 49 and where
and went
she
on
would go to
to,
the Facebook pages,
yeah,
Firewives, and then researched all the bad shit.
yeah, basically started telling herself all of like, the bad things about it. Yeah, she's told me about doing that before.
Yeah, she had told you that?
Yeah,
What did you think about her doing that?
I mean, I get it because divorce rate is higher in fire
Mm-hmm.
department marriages. It is. I mean, when you're married to a firefighter, yeah, you're gonna deal with a lot more shit than most couples have to deal with. So I understood her wanting to like look it up and see what it was like to try to get an understanding of what she was getting into. Now, obviously, watching Ladder 49 was not a realistic view of what it's actually like.
Have you found it hard to share with her sometimes the job and what we see and what we do? I know you guys' communication is really good. That's why I asked the question, because sometimes we forget that our spouses don't really understand how we feel when we see something or when it affects us, and we just go silent, and or we just don't want to talk about it, or we shut everybody off for a period of time.
Yeah. So I try to make sure I don't do that. I know I do sometimes where I'll get home, I had a rough shift, I saw some nasty shit the night before. I'll get home, I'll just want to crash. And Sarah's normally pretty good about like if I say like I'm fine right now, she won't press too hard. She'll just be like, okay. But she obviously knows something's up.
Mm-hmm.
She'll normally wait for me to be like, all right, yeah, so this is what happened.
Sorry,
Because I try not to like just not tell her because obviously like she has eyes and she can see something's bothering me.
So she could see something's bothering you. Does she bring it to your attention? Hey, you don't look like your normal self. Do you want to talk about it? Or is she like, I'll let him bring it up and just doesn't really even mention it?
So she'll normally ask me like, "Hey, what's wrong?" or "What's going on? You look like something looks off," something like that. And if I'm just like not wanting to talk about it in that moment, she doesn't usually push too hard. She'll normally just be like, "Oh, okay, that's fine," until I'm like later in that day when I'm like, "All right, yeah, so this is what was going on. These are the calls I ran. This is what I saw." But normally isn't too much of an issue because I don't get those days that often. that I come home and I was just like, that was a fucked up day and I don't feel like talking about it. Normally, I come home and I'm perfectly fine.
Yeah. I think that's the general rule for most of us is when we come home, we're usually pretty fine. We're usually
Yeah,
desensitized to some of the stuff that we see. And sometimes we're just okay. It's what's for breakfast? What are we doing today?
yeah,
And
yeah,
12 hours, 24 hours before that, we were in blood, guts, and gore.
yeah.
So, how do you feel the difference from that volunteer from when you first started to now in this career, paid career? How do you feel it has changed? And has your outlook changed on how the job was going to be?
Oh, definitely. So when I first got hired on the part or volunteer department, I had no idea what I was really going into. So like all my experience with firefighters had been just talking with the one who got me interested, taking a couple classes, and then like the shit you see on TV. So that I was blank slate. I had no idea what I was getting into, and the volunteer paid on call was so different from being full time because being volunteer, I had that pager at home, and when the pager went off, I'd go. So it wasn't a like, oh, today I'm off, so I'm not gonna go. I was always, well, if it goes off, I'm going to the station. And I think Sarah started hating that pager because we'd have date nights ruined. We'd have plenty of, just, we'd be in the middle of just spending some time together, and pager would go off, and I'd be like, oh shit, I'm on call, so I've got to go. So and could be a couple hours to go run an EMS call because I mean, the hospitals were at least about 20 to 30-minute drive. So, but between going to the station, picking up the patient, going to the station, getting the trucks, going to the patient, getting to the hospital, and getting back to the station, you're looking at usually 2 hours.
Damn.
So she would just be like, all right, well, I'll see you in 2 hours.
And now it's different.
Yeah, now with being full time, it's on my days off. It's I don't have to worry about having to run in or anything usually, or my time's just at home. I get to spend the time with her.
So it is different. Did you think all departments were going to be like that, even the paid department?
So when I was younger, I actually did kind of think that was going to be what it was like, or I was just like, hey, you've got to come in right now, and I was so like once I was like, you know, actually met full time guys, I was like, oh no, like when they're not at the station, they don't have to go in. That's their time off.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it is here with the career department,
Yeah,
man. And I think you guys going through that long distance stuff and being able to communicate definitely helps and made it a hell of a lot easier because now you're not gone for 2 months at a time and not seeing her 6 months at a time. Now it's just one day every third day.
yeah. Unless I
And
pick up overtime.
unless you pick up overtime, and then even still, you're within driving distance if something were to go wrong.
Yeah,
It's not I'll be home in 2 hours. It's something's wrong. I can leave.
yeah.
Do you enjoy the career department, or
Oh
did
yeah.
do you enjoy it more than the volunteer? About the same?
Man, I gotta say about the same, just because like the career department, I felt like especially that like with having a good crew, I definitely get that like family aspect from it, where it's like we know each other pretty well, and we hang out with each other outside of work. And but the volunteer department, like especially like the group that I actually did hang out with, it was all just like basically a group of friends that would be like, oh yeah, now let's just go put out a fire, I guess. Like we would just go to the bar and have drinks afterwards, and like
Not before.
no, not before, afterwards. But
Yeah.
like we'd hang out like that department every year. We did a big fundraiser for it was a pig roast where we'd smoke 6 full pigs and like the whole town would come out, and that was always kind of like fun to do because it was like everyone from the department getting together, putting this thing on, and spending time together. And I always enjoyed it.
So the family aspect was different
It was a
between
little
the
bit of
volunteer and the
yeah, like
career.
it was a kind of like a different family aspect. Like some of the guys at the volunteer department did come around, but they didn't really do hang out much. They didn't want to be around much. So like you'd see those guys every now and then at like maybe on a call, but like the small core group of us that actually like showed up regularly, like we all knew each other really well just because even though we weren't with each other for 24 hours, it was just because every time that pager went off, we would see each other.
And I'm assuming that pager went off quite a bit.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. If you can go back and give your younger self some advice or some heads up about being a firefighter in general, what do you think the most important piece of information or the important piece of advice you would give yourself when you were just starting? I know it's a pretty deep question.
Yeah, I know. I gotta think about that one.
Is there anything that comes to mind right off the top of your head?
I would say to listen to what some of the more senior guys at the like the volunteer and the part time departments more. So like a lot of the guys who are especially the volunteer department I was on, they were full time at other departments, and like I would like listen to like the advice they'd give me and stuff. But I was also dumbass teenager at the time, so I was like to try to pick some of their brains a little more about being what was like being a full time firefighter at the time compared to what I was experiencing as a volunteer.
Actually, I think that is a pretty good piece of advice because, especially when we're younger, we go into something, especially after we have some training. We think we go in with just the book smarts, knowing it all,
Yeah,
right? We hit the street, we hit the truck, we start going on calls, and these old hats don't have the upgraded training we have or the upgraded knowledge. And so sometimes we take what they give us advice wise or experience wise and we're like, yeah, okay, old man, you don't know what it's like today. I went through that training, I heard all about it,
yeah,
you know what I mean? This is what it's like today. But what we don't realize is that all everything that they're telling us is experience based.
yeah,
They're not going to tell us what to do to make it go wrong. They're telling us this went wrong for me when I did it, so don't do this.
mm,
Or this worked for me and it continues to work even with the upgraded knowledge and equipment and all that stuff. It works, but now it works better with that stuff. And I think when we're younger, we tend to blow it off thinking, I mean, it's that young mentality, right? Parents complain about it all the time.
yep,
The kids know everything, they think they know everything crap. And really, honestly, it's not like that at all. I think if there's any younger listeners out there, you guys need to open your ears and you need to take in what these old hats are giving you because they're not telling you this so you would can go get hurt or to screw you up on purpose. They're telling you this because you're in the life and they care about you because you're in the life and you need to listen. You need to shut up and listen. I think that's pretty damn good advice, especially to somebody that's young getting started into the fire department.
yeah, yeah. And I think one of the things I would have liked to do more is like when you find a guy who's good at like because everyone in this job has something that like they're good at that specific thing. They're really good at that one thing.
Yeah.
And when you find a guy that has like he's really intelligent or just knows everything about that topic, just sit and pick their brain about that topic. They will probably tell you more than you can remember about that topic for the next 4 hours. after you ask them one question.
Yeah. And even if you only grasp 20% of that 4 hours, that's more knowledge than you've had before
Yeah.
that can potentially save your life in a fucked up situation.
So
Would you have changed anything? Would you have done anything different? Would you have maybe, instead of starting with the volunteer as soon as you got your certification, start looking for that paid full time right away?
honestly, no. I'm happy with the way things went for me. I think starting in the volunteer was good for me because it gave me an idea of what running calls are like, or what it's like being at a fire department. And that department did help me a lot with. They helped pay for my schooling. So I really wouldn't do anything different with that because that department was really good to me, and I think good for me.
How about outside the job? Would you have done anything different, like, say, your relationship with Sarah, your living situation, all that stuff? Would you have changed how you managed all that to make it easier, better, worse, or unknown?
Can't say there's anything I'd really want to change because all kind of worked out for me. Like it's just starting off and all that, the volunteer department all the way till now. Like I think I kind of had to go through some of that earlier stuff because it did help me land where I'm at.
Yeah. I mean, some people would tell them their younger selves, hey, you're gonna might want to do this. It's gonna make it a little bit easier. Hey, don't do that because you're gonna really make it hard on yourself. But it sounds like you are very comfortable with just kind of letting it ride,
Yeah.
which makes sense because you're like that now. You're like that now. You let things roll off your back, I've noticed, pretty easily.
Usually,
You
yeah.
don't get offended very easily.
No.
You don't let things get to you. If somebody says something or does something to you, you're just like, as long as it doesn't hurt or kill me, I don't care.
Yeah, basically. It usually takes a lot before someone can say something that's going to get under my skin.
What would something said to you be that gets under your skin?
So, kind of right now, I got a situation back up north
Mm-hmm.
that it's not even something that's me. It's a friend of mine's family
Okay.
where their son, we all knew this kid was gay for a long time. We
All right.
like Frank's always been a really great kid, but his family very old school views, very against that kind of stuff. And he has a twin brother that they blatantly treat better than they treat him, and that kind of stuff just pisses me off. And when I was finding out about what was going on, his older brother, who's my friend, didn't really know how bad it was getting. So like I called up his brother and was like, "Hey man, you need to step in. Stuff's getting out of hand. Like you have to help your brother out here because how bad it was." And it just that kind of stuff just annoys me, and I really pisses me off because like it that's your kid. You shouldn't be putting him in that kind of situation. Those are the kind of things that pisses me off. There's really nothing you can say to me personally that's going to upset me. It's more of like when I see things around me, friends going through stuff, that's stuff that pisses me off more.
So when your friends or family get involved into some shit, you get really upset and feel like you need to do something about it.
Usually, yeah.
So there's, as barring me talking about anything about your friends or your wife or anything, there's nothing really that's going to really get under your skin, huh?
No, you can try to insult me all day. I'll just be like, all right,
Well, I do insult you all day.
basically.
Yeah, we insult each other though.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's how I know you like me.
yeah, that's how I know. Yeah, exactly. I posted something like that on Instagram and Facebook the other day. There's post by the Fire Inside, and they basically talked about how the tradition of ragging on somebody, especially somebody that's new, kind of not hazing them to the point where it's hurtful,
Yeah.
but like the small little hazing, the dumping the bucket of water, or or waking you up in the middle of the night, making you think we had a call, but you didn't, making fun of you. Like that in the fire department shows that we care about you. We're ragging on you. We're treating you like our little brother,
Yeah.
you know? And if you're not being teased, if you walk into the room and people just go quiet and they're not teasing you or not engaging with you, there's probably something wrong with how you're being perceived.
Yeah.
Do you think there's an that takes me to a point. Do you think there's an issue within the fire department with people in general, really? Do you think there's an issue when somebody has an issue or a problem with you, whether it be minute, something stupid, or something really big, that people tend to stay quiet about it and then let their idea of you instead of actually talking to you and figuring it out? Do you think that happens more often than not?
Definitely.
Why do you think that is?
Because it would be uncomfortable to talk to that person.
Yeah, but it's uncomfortable being around that person already.
Yeah, but I think a lot of people like say like I don't know, you did something and I had an issue with it. A lot of people would be like, "Oh, I'm just gonna go talk shit about him behind his back about how he did that," instead of just being coming to you and be like, "Hey, man, why'd you do that?" Because actually bringing it up and trying to confront that person about it, it's like it's uncomfortable to do that. It's
Yeah, but what I don't understand is why it's uncomfortable.
I
I
don't
mean, it's
know.
already uncomfortable to begin with. You already don't like that person, but you got to be around that person. That's uncomfortable when you're around somebody that pissed you off. That feeling itself is already uncomfortable.
Yeah,
So why not just hit it head on? I don't understand that about human beings in general is we forget that there's already an uncomfortable situation, but instead of trying to mitigate it or fix it, we'd rather go talk shit about it
yeah,
or spread rumors or continue to think this way without really knowing the reason behind what happened to make you feel that way. They assume the reason, right? They assume, well, they did it this because they wanted to do this, whatever. They assume the reason, they take that assumption, give it that meaning, that feeling, and they keep it instead of going, hey, Kurt, you rolled up the hose really fucked up. You're just fucking lazy, aren't you? And then you can be like, well, no, I was just really tired, man. I was out of my head. It was after a call. Yeah, I didn't give you a chance to explain. I could have been
yeah,
like, oh man, just don't let Kurt ever fucking stack the hose again because that dude's fucking lazy. He does it horrible. I don't get. I would come to you and be like, hey man, this looks like shit. What's the deal? Do you
hmm,
need help? Did you not know how? What's the deal? Were you lazy? Did you just not care? But at least I give you the chance to explain yourself, right?
yeah,
And instead of spreading shit about you. But I think the fire department and humans in general, but the fire department, because we're so close with each other, that rumors and shit like that happens more often than it should. We're grown ass freaking men and women there, man. Grown ass men and women.
and there's a lot that act like it's still fucking high school.
Exactly. I mean, we have shit stirs left and right. Left and right. I don't understand it. If you have a fucking issue, say something. Give the person the chance to defend themselves. Fuck.
Yeah,
And I always tell people this whenever the idea of me going to another station or something or working with another crew or working with somebody else or whatever. People ask me like, how do you feel about that? And I was just like, I don't care. I don't have a problem working with anyone. And if anyone has a problem working with me, they haven't told me about it. So really, they're the ones uncomfortable, not me.
yeah. I mean, for the most part, I usually get along with just about anyone. Most people, I get along with them. I know there's some people that don't like me. They've never told me directly about it, so
Do you care if they like you or not?
not really.
Not really. Do you think if you did care about it, you would actually go up to them and say, "Hey, man, what's the deal? why don't you like me? I kind of respect you, but I hear that you don't like me. Can you explain why? Would you be willing to do that if it was somebody that you looked up to?
Yeah, if it was someone that I looked up to, but for the most part, it's people that I don't work with them much, almost ever, and all I've heard is word of mouth that they don't like me. So I don't know for certain that they don't, but
You ever thought about actually going up to them and asking them what you heard is true?
yeah, I actually should, but like I said, I actually don't even work with them very often, almost ever. So
No, even if you don't, though, they're the ones that are spreading the shit.
yeah,
Maybe you go talk to them and find out.
I
Maybe it
probably
stops
should.
the shit talking. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
if you don't want your name to be shit talked about, maybe you need to step up and find out who it is that's saying it. Find out why.
yeah,
At least then you can be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, you're right. I did mean to do that. That's exactly what I meant. You can continue thinking I'm an asshole. Cool. Or you can, they tell you and you're like, man, that's not what I meant when I did that at all. You know what I mean? Clear the fucking air, man. Clear the air. The longer you don't clear the air, these guys that have been around longer, that people know, that they've known longer, they built the trust with these other people. When they hear that shit talking, they trust them.
hmm
And so now, not only are you going to have to clear the air with that person, now you're going to have to clear the air with all the people that the rumor's stuck with. You know what I mean? And it makes it a lot harder down the road to get yourself out of it, because now you have to prove yourself to everyone instead of just proving yourself to that one person, or not even proving yourself, explaining yourself to that one person.
yeah,
I mean, we have a friend that's going through that right now, but because he doesn't step up and say what's on his mind, or he's too afraid, his actions are speaking louder than words. He can clear the air so much if he just spoke up and expressed his feelings instead of trying to keep them in.
hmm
You know what I mean? I'm not going to say his name, but I really do think that would help.
yeah. Actually, probably would help them a lot.
I mean, just to even start the perception change. You know what I mean? So we're going to go ahead and switch gears.
All right.
We're going to talk about your beliefs.
Okay.
And the reason why I want to do that is because I want to show people that people in this profession don't all believe the same thing, right? We were all brought up differently. We all were brought up with a different moral compass, a different idea of what's right and wrong. Now, of course, there's always that general right and wrong, don't kill anybody, don't hurt anybody on purpose, stuff like that. Those are all general things. But there's sometimes like social issues that a lot of us in the fire department, some of us agree with and some of us don't, political issues, stuff like that. So, where do you stand on just social issues in general? We tend to, when we have ideas about social issues, we tend to categorize them as conservative or liberal, right? The idea being liberal is more of an open mind, everything goes, doesn't matter type things when it comes to social issues. And conservative have more, and this is just what I've seen, this is my opinion. Conservatives more religion based, morality based type beliefs when it comes to social issues. Where do you think you lie on that spectrum?
So, always kind of considered myself more of a libertarian, if I had to put a name on it. So I'm very much, as long as you're not hurting other people or getting in the way of other people, go do what you want. Is yeah,
That's it.
basically it. For most things, if you're not fucking up other people's lives, have at it.
But
You know,
I'm with you on that too.
yeah,
I'm with you at that 110%. As long as you're not hurting, the people. the general population, especially if you're not hurting my way of life, my kids' way of life, my friends' way of life. If you're not hurting those things, be who you want to be.
Yeah.
None of that stuff. I mean, on a day-to-day basis, I do not wake up in the morning and go, man, there's gay people out there. Like I don't understand those people that do that. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sure they have their explanations as to why they're that way. I don't. It's hard for me to say I don't hold it against them because I don't think it's right. So when I don't think something's right, I like to speak up. I like to speak up about it. But I have to try to remember to not put myself in their shoes, but remember that they had a different upbringing. They had a different belief system growing up. They have all this other stuff that manipulates how they are now, right? So it's really hard for me to not get upset with them, but at the same time, I want to be able to try to understand.
Yeah.
And it's so polarizing because people tend to think that if you disagree with them, that you're totally against them. And if you're totally against them, you're nothing. And I do not agree with that philosophy.
No. So I'm more of, even if someone's doing something that I don't agree with, for the most part, I'm gonna be like, just because I don't agree with it doesn't mean I can't let them do it. It's their life. They can go do with what they want.
Exactly. Exactly. As long as it's not hurting anybody.
Yeah.
How do you think that trait of yours, that belief system of yours, translates into doing the job? And the reason why I ask that is because we have been to some calls, firefighters in general,
Yeah.
where we are treating that guy with the KKK tattoo or the MS-13 tattoos, or we arrive on scene and we get told, I don't want you touching me, you're white. You know what I mean? Like how how does that affect how you perform your job?
Honestly, when you're in the back of the ambulance, I am going to basically treat everyone with the same level of respect as I can. I mean, I may not agree with what this person has tattooed on them or things that they are saying, but they're still a person and I still need to treat them and make sure they're getting the proper treatments until they get to the hospital.
Do you think that goes against your morality when you do that? Like you're kind of almost going against what you believe when you have to treat them. And I say have to because there's a legality behind it, behind our job, that we have to treat everybody. And the reason why I say this is because Melinda and I were talking about it, and she said, well, do you find that hard sometimes when you have to treat those kind of people? And we've had to treat people that have hurt other people. And we
Yeah.
just said, as long as you're not hurting anybody, I don't care. But now we have to treat this person that's hurting other people.
Yeah, I've definitely had that patient before.
And you still treat them just like the person they hurt. You still try to mitigate anything that's wrong with them just like the person they hurt. Do you find that hard to do sometimes? Do you think it's kind of going against your beliefs having to do that?
Honestly, for me, it's really not that hard to do. Like, I might think this guy on the stretcher is a real piece of shit. But while I'm running that call, I try to just put all that aside. I'm not looking at him for his views. I'm not looking at for the things he says at that point or the things he did. Now I'm just doing what needs to be done on this person. What interventions need to be taken on this person. And then after the call's over, yeah, I might sit with my partner and be like, yeah, that guy was a fucking douchebag. I hated him. But in the moment, I try to make sure just I put all that away. I put all that aside. I don't let myself think about it. It's
How do you do that? What's your process for doing that? Like for me, the way I explain it is whenever we go up to a call. Everything's the man, we're gonna have to treat this fucker, man, he's a piece of shit, blah 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 blah. Holy shit, that's a big accident. But as soon as the doors open, it's like I have this switch. It's a
Hmm.
switch. I can't explain it, just like really you can't really explain how you push everything off the side. There's just this switch. It's no longer, it's almost dehumanizing them.
Yeah.
They become a job and not necessarily, they're a human being, but we're treating a human being. And that's it. We're treating a
Yeah.
human being.
Yeah. When I'm in the back of the ambulance with a patient, especially if it's a patient that's like you said, like in a bad accident or a really bad, really bad difficulty breathing, or like some bad medical call or bad trauma, I do kind of take away the humanity from it a little bit. I think that's something a lot of people in our job do. I think it's a lot of people that, especially have like seen some nastier shit, tend to do it more because it's easier to process everything. It's easier to stay on track and make sure you're going step by step of what you need to do when you just make it more objective based and not emotion based.
I think there's an issue sometimes when we do hire those kind of people that can't separate that emotion. It almost hinders them from doing the job to the best of their ability.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that.
Do you do you think that it almost makes us callous in a bad way, or is it more a coping thing? Is it I'm trying to understand because I can't explain it, so I'm trying to find somebody else who can. I'm trying to find the explanation as to how we can explain that we care for everybody the same, even though they're not the same.
Yeah,
Whether we agree with them or not, it's hard to explain.
it is hard to explain because a lot of people would say that like when you get that, say that racist asshole in the back of the ambulance, they'd be like, oh, how can you help that guy? And yeah, I don't agree with him. He's a like in to me, I think he's wrong for his beliefs, wrong for the things he thinks. But I'm still gonna do my job. I'm still gonna help him because that's what I do. I'm going to help people no matter what. I said I was going to, and that's what I'm gonna do.
And you don't find it, I, probably now, you don't find it as difficult as it was at the beginning.
No,
Did you ever find it difficult?
I remember like some of my early calls when I was first on the volunteer department, where I transported a wife. This is a long time ago, so I remember the whole story. I transported a wife who beat the living hell out of her husband. She cut him up, just smacked him around, beat him, and she did this all the time apparently because he'd go back, like he'd get out of the hospital, go back, and we'd be back there again, same shit. And I remember like he hit her back one day, and we cops got called out, and then they called us out, and I had to transport her. I was just a basic at the time. It was me and a medic in the back. They just had me jumping back just because she was high on something. I don't remember what, but she was acting all sporadic, so we had to restrain her to the stretcher, and they just wanted an extra hand and back. And I just remember like being like, man, this woman's a piece of garbage. How can she do that? And now I still think that, but while we're in the back of the ambulance, I'm just kind of like, man, I'm just doing my job, just get her to the hospital, treat what I need to treat.
Just like you would anybody else,
Yeah,
whether you agreed with them or not.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's something people really don't realize is that even though firefighters are just as diverse as everybody else, we have all different types of belief systems. We don't all agree on the same thing all the time. We are going to do what we can for you. If you're in a burning building, we're going to do everything we can, even sometimes if that means possibly losing our life to save you. We might lose our life for somebody that on the outside of the job we would never, ever hang out with.
Hmm.
Are you cool with those terms?
Yeah, I mean, when you agreed to do this job, you agreed that you're going to help everyone, not not just one type of person, or not going to help one type of person. You said you're going to help everyone.
And putting your life on the line for people that you don't agree with, people that do hurt other people. There's a guy trapped in a burning building that we know is a wife beater.
You're still going to try to get them out.
We're going to do everything.
Everything we can.
Exactly. And I don't think people really understand that
Yeah.
because it's hard for people, regular people, it's hard for them to really comprehend the fact that we're going to risk our lives for somebody we do not agree with.
Yeah.
For bad people, we're going to risk our lives for bad people from time to time. It's going to happen. It's part of the job. And it's hard to explain why we do it because afterwards, there are some sayings that we say, like, damn, ugh, I hate that we saved him, but I'm happy that we did too. It's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's hard. It's hard to explain. It's like, man, we should have just left him hurting a little bit more, but we know we needed to treat him and not make him hurt anymore
Yeah.
or her, and it's golly, it's so hard to explain the thought process and how we separate all that.
Yeah, honestly, I can't really describe how I do it.
Yeah. Is there so say you're me, right?
Okay.
Say you're me and you're still you, but you're me. You're like, Kurt, I want to ask you something. What would that something be? If you're asking yourself a question, you want me to ask it, but I haven't gotten there yet or I haven't asked it yet. What's a question you think you would want people to know or hear the answer to?
Well, I didn't expect to have to ask questions.
You're asking yourself this question. If
Um,
you're me doing this podcast, I know Kurt's mind. This is something I want people to know about him that we haven't already talked about. If there's nothing, there's nothing. I mean, that means I'm a badass podcaster and I covered all the bases.
so far you have been. There's nothing I can think of.
First thing that comes to mind.
So I was thinking, like, is there? Well, for me, a question to you.
Okay, we'll do that. How about that? There we go.
Is
I
there?
usually wait for the end,
Is
but
there a question or things that people, like people outside the fire service,
okay.
is there questions or is there things that they always bring up to you that that kind of like irks you a little, like the things that like they're always wanting to talk
You
about?
know exactly what I'm going to say, and that's why you brought it up. Okay, so one of my biggest issues with meeting new people and sometimes even friends and family is the question, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
I think we've all been asked that question.
Right? I think a lot of civil service gets asked at nurses, doctors, I mean, lawyers, what's the worst case you've ever had to work? I mean, like, but when you ask me that question, it doesn't just mean what's the worst thing you've ever seen. For me, It's not just asking, did you see a bone sticking out, or did you see blood and gore? Did you see a whole bunch of dead bodies?
Yeah.
For me, it's not that. For me, when somebody asks me that question, and I went over this with your wife a little bit too. When somebody asks me that question, I always stop them and I say, I'll answer that question, but first I'm going to tell you what it means to me, what that question actually is to me. So when you ask me that question, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? You're asking me, what's the one call that fucked you up that you really don't like thinking and talking about?
Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they don't see it like that when they ask you that.
No, and they don't. And I understand it's a curiosity
Yeah.
thing. I get that. But what I'm doing is I'm letting them know my perspective on that question.
Yeah.
And so I tell them, all right, I'll answer the question, but I'm going to tell you what that question means to me. And then I'm going to ask you, do you still want me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Because if you still want to know, I'll talk to you about it. But it's not going to be this, we're at a party drinking a beer. Oh, yeah, I've seen this. No, this is, you're asking me the worst thing I've ever seen. All right. That's a lot deeper question than you think it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure you understand that.
So the question, I actually get the question of what's the craziest thing you've seen more than I get what's the worst thing you've seen. I've gotten the worst thing you've seen before.
So that's a different question.
Yeah. So when I get the craziest thing you've ever seen,
I'm okay
like,
with sharing
yeah,
that all day.
because I've seen some weird shit.
I've seen some crazy stuff. I mean, stuff up the rectum you didn't think could fit up the rectum.
Or the guy who did eat the entire sandwich bag of shrooms and was now tripping balls into this house that he broke into.
Oh my God. Yeah. See, so craziest, that question's different.
Yeah.
I don't mind answering what's the craziest thing you've ever seen. That's lighthearted because you can, I mean, we've seen a lot of crazy stuff. So we have a lot of crazy stories. But it's the question, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
Yeah.
That question, that to me, when the general public or when a friend, when somebody that just meets me, friend or family, doesn't matter, when they ask me what's the worst thing you've ever seen, that's a totally different question. And it means a hell of a lot more to me than just what's the worst thing you've ever seen. And it's hard to explain because we do see a lot of shit. We see a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going to roll into a little bit of the whole PTSD side of it because it's fairly new in our department being aware, right?
Yeah.
Being PTSD aware or being mentally aware of your feelings.
Yeah, I'd say that's fairly new just in the fire service in general.
Yeah, absolutely.
For a long time, it was just kind of shut up and deal with it.
I think it's a new thing socially, period.
Yeah.
Military, fire, civil service, all that stuff. Childhood trauma. They understood it back then that when you had childhood trauma, it affected you, but there wasn't really a name for it until recently, until PTSD really became popular. I say popular in the term, right? Being aware of it, being aware that this thing affected you in a way where it changed your chemical makeup in your mind that fucks you up.
Yeah, it's only been in the last couple of years that's actually been more in the spotlight.
Yes, that's paying attention to it. And when we get asked to relive those things that might trigger that, it's frustrating. I'm not going to say it's maddening. It's frustrating because I think there's a perception of people that think, look, you chose to do this job. You should have known you were going to see this kind of stuff. Why are you letting it affect you? Yeah. I see a lot of nasty shit. We see a lot of nasty shit that doesn't affect us. No. A lot of bad shit that doesn't affect us.
No, in just the short time you and I have been at Station 5, we've ran a couple.
Yeah, we ran some really bad calls. Kids, wives, dead people. I mean, we ran a lot of bad calls, but we can brush those off fairly easily because they just didn't impact us. Mm-hmm. But there are those things that we see that sometimes do. It sometimes does impact us. and it impacts us in a way that really does fuck with our psyche. Or we made a call and we thought we did everything we could and the outcome was still bad.
Yeah.
That, I think, is one of the worst feelings when you literally did everything you could to save this person or to mitigate that situation and it still went bad.
Yeah.
It fucks you up. It fucks you up on so many levels. It fucks you up on the human level, especially when there's a patient involved. It fucks you up on a job level because you felt like you didn't do your job well enough. It fucks you up in your head. And I think now, and I thank God for it, that the awareness and it's starting to change where it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's starting to change. And I think that's a good thing. I still think there's a bunch of people out there, especially a lot of the old hats, some of the new hats, some of the macho guys that think they're macho or whatever, that there's this thing that's like, shut up, nobody wants to hear about it.
Yeah. The just deal with it kind of
Just
attitude.
deal with it attitude. Or if you do try to talk to them about it, they're like, I don't want to hear your fucking problems. You know, there's still some of those guys out there. There's still some of those guys in our profession, but it's not on. I don't blame them for being that way. I don't fault them for being that way. That's how they deal,
Yeah.
right? And if that's how they deal and they're able to continue to live not being affected, that's good for them. I'm not going to dog them for that. But for people that need help, that need more processing to cope, that shouldn't be an issue.
Hmm.
It should not be an issue. Have you ever felt like if you had an issue that you were pushed back in the job, like say a call or whatever, you have you felt like it was going to be detrimental to you when it came to your how people looked at you if you did speak up? Because I think people's
Yep.
perceptions of us, we take that, especially in our field, we don't want people to think we're weak,
Yeah.
especially our brothers and sisters on the job.
I think the attitude in the fire service has a lot of times been, I don't want people to view me as, like you said, weak. I don't want people to think that, like, oh, he's a pussy, that kind of attitude. So guys are just people in the fire service. A lot of times have the tendency to just bury it, just be like, nope, just stick that way off in the back of my brain and try not to think about that again. But if something is messing you up, that is definitely the wrong attitude to take towards it.
Well, yeah, because you might be pushing it back when you go to work, but then when you come home and you
It's
don't
not staying
have,
back.
yeah, no, and you go home and you don't have that catalyst of trying to hide it from the guys, but now you're home, but you've gotten so used to hiding it and becoming this calloused whatever person or mindset, and now it's affecting your home life.
Yeah.
I'm no psychologist. I've done a lot of research on it because I deal with it. I'm not going to say dealt with it. I deal with it. I take medication. I have ADD, which can make it worse sometimes because my mind is constantly thinking and running. And every now and then, those thoughts come up unprovoked,
Hmm.
no trigger, just happens. And my demeanor completely changes. And I'm okay with admitting that. But I'm in the process of getting help. I'm still getting help. But it's okay for me to acknowledge that. Do I feel like it makes me less than sometimes? Yeah, it does. It makes me feel like, well, come on, man, snap out of it. You got this. It didn't mean anything. Snap out of it. Why does it make you feel this? You know what I mean? I try to talk myself out of how I feel about it, and it, without even realizing it makes it worse.
Hmm.
because now my family has to deal with it. Now my kids see it, my wife, my parents, my friends. It gets pretty bad. It can ruin relationships, and the only thing that's ruining it is your lack of being able to just say, I need to talk about it. I need to get it off my chest. I need to
Yeah.
tell somebody how it made me feel. Usually, a lot of the time, that's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. And I I really haven't had a call that's really messed me up yet. As I say yet, there's still time. I've had ones that they've sat with me, but nothing that's like I've really like been like fuck, and like still years later it's still causing issues. I haven't had that yet. But I definitely would never look down or think less of someone because they did have that and now they're trying to get like some help because of it.
I almost think it makes them a little bit stronger because then they're still able and capable of doing the job, even though they have that literally burdening them on a day to day basis. It burdens them.
Yeah, it
Every
really
call,
is.
they don't know if it's going to be just as bad or worse than that one that fucked them up. For me, it was more than just the call. There is a couple of calls that really fucked me up. There's two that I have nightmares about, but it's also, home life, financial stress,
Yeah.
arguments with my loved ones, stuff like that. All that stuff, it just piles up. And I think that when we don't have friends that are opening to listen, we don't have that outlet, or we don't have that training on how to rewire our brains to not let it affect us. Until we're able to do that, it could make your performance less than and potentially dangerous.
Oh, not just that. I mean, I think we've all worked with or been around firefighters who you've seen them go through that kind of stuff and they turn to things like alcoholism instead.
Yeah, which ends up hurting them even more.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing, man. But there is help out there. There is help out there. Our department, thank God, put out guys to go get that peer support. They're not therapists. They're not guys that are going to fix your problem, but they're guys that are there to help you and point you in the right direction and will listen.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to tell you, I know exactly how you feel, because they don't. They're not
No.
you,
Yeah.
but they're going to point you in a direction where you can get help for that. You know what I mean? And it's okay to let those guys know because they're not going to share it with anybody else.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to be a part of that group. We have a few others in the department that are a part of that group. And there's a lot of departments that have peer supporters that went and got training from the IAFF for that specific reason.
Mm-hmm.
The IAFF, if you are a union firefighter, has the Center of Excellence that is for firefighters, directly towards firefighters. Their whole treatment plan is for firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think, well, how am I going to go talk to a regular psychologist? They don't understand my job. There's still an avenue for you to go. I'm not
Yeah.
saying regular psychologist isn't going to help as much, if not more. I'm just saying if that's something that you're concerned about, there's avenues for us as firefighters to go and seek that help.
Yeah.
And it's okay to seek that help. Firefighters care about each other more than we'll ever admit. More than we'll ever admit. We'd
Yes,
rather
definitely true.
we'd rather dog on you and make fun of you and everything else, but as soon as you need help, we're there for you. Right? In general, there are those few, but in general, everybody just cares about you being well, right?
Yeah.
We were taught in fire school, right? Yourself, your crew, then the public.
Yes.
Why? Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't help your crew. If you can't help your crew, you can't help the public.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And our mental health is just as important as our physical health. So if we can't take care of ourselves mentally, we're not going to be able to help our crews when the shit hits the fan, and we're not going to be able to help the public when the shit hits the fan. That's just the way I see it. Do you think that you would be somebody that people could come talk to? Do you think you're looked at like that?
I don't know if I'm looked at like that, but I know I am someone that if they needed to, I'll sit and talk with you.
Do you think if there's other firefighters out there listening to this podcast right now, if they emailed you, hey, I kind of get you. I like your backstory. You mind talking to me a little bit? Would you be open to that?
I'd definitely be open to talking to guys.
Awesome. So what's your email?
All right. It's KWOOLRIDGE09
kwoolridge09@gmail.com. You guys, if you need help and you don't want to talk to me, talk to him. He'll point you in the right direction. And if he can't, he'll get you somebody who can.
Definitely.
All right, we got a little bit deep there. I go off on my tangents about that stuff because it's something I strongly believe. That was a very good question, by the way, you asked. Went into all that. But that's good. I think everybody needs to hear how we deal and how we're learning to deal with all that stuff, and maybe understand a little bit more about how we process things, because we process things just like everybody else, just like another human being. So I appreciate you asking me that. I want to go ahead and I'm going to start wrapping it up a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to ask you the one question that I ask everybody
All right.
at the end of the podcast, right? And so my podcast is What Makes Us Fire. It can be taken both ways. It can be taken, hey, I'm going to tell you what makes us fire. But it's more of, I'm asking the question, what do you think it is that makes us fire? Firefighters in general.
So overall, I don't think you're gonna like my answer because I don't have like a definitive answer.
Well, you're only saying that because I told you I didn't like your answer the first time we had this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead.
I don't know if there's one specific trait that you can be like, yep, all these firefighters, they all have that one thing, that one trait. I don't know if there really is that one trait.
They're firefighters.
Well, a firefighter's not a trait. A firefighter, that's
a trade. Okay.
The trait, like that one thing that like we all have. Like they all do that same thing. They all think that same way, or they all do that same thing. I don't think every firefighter does. I think the one thing that could come the closest is the fact that we do like helping people. I know it's that like stereotypical answer that you give when you're being interviewed to be on the department. Everyone says it just because you're supposed to say it. Of, oh, well, I just like helping people. I think there definitely is a level that we all do like knowing that we did help someone. That we like see that person was having a heart attack. We caught it and we got them to the cath lab, and now that person's still alive. I think there is definitely a level of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is a level of adrenaline junkies.
Yeah, for sure.
But I don't know if there's one thing that you can be like, yep, every single one of these firefighters, they all have that one thing that all makes them the same.
And I'm going to tell you again, that's a good answer. However, there's questions within that answer.
Oh, yeah.
Like, where did we get that feeling of wanting to help someone, especially with all the different backgrounds, especially with all our different moralities?
Yeah.
Like, if we generally liked helping people, we would help everyone all the time, every time, inside and outside the job. We don't. We pick and choose who we help outside the job. So there's that. And then the adrenaline junkies, there's a billion different other jobs they can do for that adrenaline rush. Yeah. It's a good answer because it does incorporate the job, and there is a level of those things, but it doesn't get to that thing I'm looking for, in that with all our backgrounds, with all our different moralities, our beliefs, how we think, we all decided at some point that Yes, we do like helping people, but why did we decide to help people this way? Why not another way? And if we do like helping people, and that is the answer, why do people pick and choose who they help outside the job when there is no lawful repercussions?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I do like your answer because there is some truth to it. I'm still looking for that strong answer that it's almost impossible to explain, but that's okay because like I said before, that just means this podcast is gonna be going for a really long
Yeah,
time.
just gonna keep
Trying
interviewing
to figure
people.
it out. But other than that, man, thank you. Seriously, thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and start wrapping it up.
All right. Thanks for
Is
having
there
me on.
anything else you want to go ahead and say right now?
I think we covered it.
You think we covered it?
How long have we been talking here?
I have
Near
no
2 hours
idea.
again?
Almost 2 hours again. Holy shit. Yeah, about an hour and a half because I
Oh yeah.
sucked at computer stuff. All right, Kurt. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for coming on What Makes Us Fire. Brother, I'll see you tomorrow at work. Well, no, you
Nope.
go into a different
Yep,
station.
I'm going to Medic 2 tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, everybody, thank Kurt for being here. Check out the podcast. Stay tuned and be safe, everybody. Love each other. Be open to hearing different points of views. Peace. Okay, What Makes Us Fire family? That was Kurt. I know the audio was a little bit messed up, and I promise you from now on that will no longer be an issue. But I really do hope you enjoyed his story, how he overcame that perception, and his viewpoints on human beings and life and the job in general. Kurt, thank you very much for coming on the show. I want to remind you guys, please get out there, follow What Makes Us Fire on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at What Makes Us Fire. Also on TikTok on What Makes Us Fire. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel What Makes Us Fire Podcast. And of course, you can email me at whatmakesusfire@yahoo.com. And if any of you guys out there need help, please reach out. Much love to you guys, What Makes Us Fire family. Stay safe, have fun. Peace.